Shalom, shalom, Yasharallah. Welcome to another class, another history class. My name is ASH NAPASH, my brother.
Shamar,
Shamar, yeah. So today we're going to be covering the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah the prophet. We're going to get right to it. Isaiah lived, when did he live? He was pretty much prophesying during the time of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, which is approximately between 786, 697. or you got some other dates that are approximate to that. So his ministry began around 740 BC, and he was obviously an Israelite. His dad, his father. Let's go. Let's go to Isaiah 1. And just to sum it up before we go into it, when you read it, it's what 66 chapters. It's one of the largest, right? It's the largest prophet. He was considered one of the main prophets, right? And basically the summary of the whole book is him prophesying about Israel, warning them to get right, and then warning them about the judgment that was going to fall upon them if they didn't turn from their wicked ways. That's about, from chapter 1 through about 38. 39 and on, it talks about the judgment that came upon them, which was, Babylon taking the southern kingdom known as Judah into captivity. Then he also prophesies a whole lot about Yahushua. There's a couple of chapters that talk about Yahushua, talk about him and his coming, talk about certain details, how he was gonna come through the lineage of Jesse, come from a virgin, and the city that he was going to be born, and so forth. So I don't know how much we're going to be able to cover, but that's pretty much what it is, And then he also talks about he talks against Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, also against Israel, Judah, Syria, Egypt, and Ethiopia. So it's quite a good amount of history. I mean, it is 66 chapters. The 66th chapter goes into the New Jerusalem. He talks about all the laws, all the feasts are still going to be in effect in the latter days in the new kingdom, or in the kingdom of Yahushua. So let's get into it. Isaiah 1 and 1.
Isaiah chapter 1 verse 1. The vision of Isaiah the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah.
Exactly, and as you can see, if you know your history, you go look on the chart. If you don't, and you will see that these are the last, what do you have right here? The last 4 kings of the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom, right? So these are the things that he saw. He was obviously living amongst these individuals, amongst, these Israelites at that time. And as you can see from the jump, you're going to see that the state of Israel was pretty bad. By this time, he lives, right now he's living pretty much right before the captivity of the northern kingdom. So as he's here more, his focus is more in the southern kingdom. He's also, obviously the northern kingdom is going through the same thing, or obviously a little worse than Judah. But we've covered that in the past. As far as, all the transgressions that the northern kingdom was committing, they're about to face captivity through the hands of the Assyrians. So let's see what's happening in the southern kingdom. Go ahead.
Verse 2. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me.
So Most High is breaking it down like, look, man, I have chosen thee. You're my anointed. And in return, what have you guys done is rebelled against me. Go ahead.
The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel doth not know. My people doth not consider.
We use it constantly when we out here teaching, right? Because this is the same thing. Like, there's nothing new under the sun. We pretty much been in this type of situation since we disobeyed the Most High. Reason why all of us went into different captivities. This is one of the first captivities that the southern kingdom is going to go into after, the Assyrian captivity that our brothers, the northern kingdom, went into. So he's saying Israel doth not consider. And this, like I said, Isaiah, like many of the other prophets, all they bring, like when you look at Jeremiah, all they bring is warning, right? Warning and judgment. Basically, everything that Moses, like and any other prophet, has always brought to the table. Yahushua, what we talk about, is real simple, right? It's either you obey or you face the consequences. also you obey and face the positive consequences, right? So I hear from the jump is saying that Israel does not consider. Continue on.
A sinful nation, a
Uh-huh.
people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward.
Imagine that. Gone away backward, right? So this is what's happening in these days. Jump down to 10. Read from 10 down to 20.
Come on. Verse 10, hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our God, ye people of Gomorrah.
So you see how he's comparing them? He's comparing to some of the worst cities in our history. We read about Sodom and Gomorrah. There was only, what, 3 people that made it up out of there? Or 4, but 3 in reality. So he's showing you how bad it's gotten in the kingdom, in the south side of Israel, kingdom of Judah. So he's comparing them to Sodom and Gomorrah. Go ahead.
To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me?
Check this. This is crucial right here because this befalls upon us too, living in this modern Egypt, modern Sodom and Gomorrah, and us trying to keep, the new moons, tabernacles, all the holy days of the Most High. So he's like, read that from the top again.
To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me?
Uh-huh.
Saith the Lord. I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks or of lambs or of he-goats.
Uh-huh.
When ye come to appear before me, who hath required this at your hand to tread my courts?
Go ahead.
Bring no more vain oblations.
Bring no more what?
Bring no more vain oblations.
So you see, because that's what we live and we walk in this truth just like our brothers in the past were doing. We started the chapter talking about backwards, wicked individuals that do not consider. Said dumb animals know their Lord. They know their position. Says, but Israel is nowhere close to knowing and understanding what it really is to be an obedient child of the Most High. But yet we out here bringing all these sacrifices, all these bullocks, all these lambs and goats unto the Most High. And he's saying, look, I'm not dealing with none of that vain nonsense. All that stuff that you're bringing to me has no value. Pretty much going back, again, nothing new under the sun, going back to Cain and Abel. Both of them brought, offerings to the Most High, but only one of them was sincere, which was Abel's. So it's going into that right here. It's like, look, who's even asked you to come to my courts? Which is something that you might be stuck like, damn, isn't that what the commandments state? But that's one thing that we really got to go into. Remember, all these books, we're reading them right now as history, but it's actually what we live in this present time. Nothing new under the sun. Basically, the same thing that the Most High is saying to them back then through Isaiah. He's telling us through Isaiah that if we are partaking of these feasts, to make sure that we come wholeheartedly. If not, he says, don't even bother. You read about that in, Psalms 56. Right? With David. David talks about it. It's like, look, I know you don't require none of these sacrifices, but obedience. Sirach talks about the same thing. He says, with obedience, you have offered enough. You have came through with enough sacrifices. But go ahead.
Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting.
And that's something to meditate on deeply, because that's, when you understand what he's telling us right here, like obviously Israel was keeping the new moons, keeping all the assemblies that we are required. But it says, I cannot away with, it says, it is iniquity, even the solemn meeting, the solemn assemblies. So just to show you, like, you can't just go through the process. You got to focus on what it is, the whole point of us doing and committing to these feasts is to make sure that we are living according to the scriptures, according to the law, right? Obviously, Israel wasn't, because at the same time that they were doing this, as you read on, you see that they were bowing down to all these other idols. They were pretty much the same way that we live in right here, the same thing that we have now. Drunkenness, you had excessive, parties and stuff like that, dealing with harlots, murdering, everything that Hosea 4 talks about. All that was prevalent in Israel, but yet we were still faking it like, we was good with the Most High. And he's calling us out. He's like, nah, I'm cool with that. Bring that no more, right? Go ahead.
Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hateth.
Man.
They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them.
Go ahead.
And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood.
Imagine that. And that's the state of Israel. Not so much Israel that's in the truth, I hope. Mic check. Israel that's out in the world, right? We out here praising Caesar Borgia, praising a stone in the Middle East, praising all these vain deities, right? All these so-called gods. And still, the Most High brings judgment upon us, and then we out there crying to him like, why is it that you're not helping us? Why is it that, you're not listening to us? Go to Isaiah 59 right quick. Let's jump forward, because like I said, the whole book is pretty much talking about the same thing. It's just giving so many details, because obviously it was like different timelines, right? But it's all summed up the same way. Go ahead and read 59:1.
Isaiah 59:1. Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened, that it cannot save, neither his ear heavy, that it cannot hear.
So it says the Most High is able to do anything. He could help you. He said nothing, as long as you with the Most High, nothing's impossible, right? But he's saying he's not deaf and his arms ain't short. But what is it? Why is he not helping us?
But your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear.
Exactly. So it's showing you like, look, this is exactly where the Most High is not dealing with you. And Wisdom of Solomon, it tells you straight up that the Most High departeth. Let's get Wisdom of Solomon 1 and verse 3. And that's a crucial point that we always got to remember, because, like I said, it's mainly for the people that's not in the truth. But then also it occurs with the people that are in this truth, in the walk. Because then we just start going through the motions, feeling like, like how we used to celebrate Christmas, Thanksgiving, or whatever. It was just a day. It becomes a vain tradition, a vain custom. It's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be keeping these statutes, these laws, for the purpose, the sole purpose of what the Most High designed them to be for, which is, to be in harmony, to be more connected to the Most High, to be looking out for each other, to be your brother's keeper, your sister's keeper, right? But look at what it says in Wisdom of Solomon 1 and 3.
Wisdom of
How many times was he not envious of him when all David was doing was the will of the Most High, defending the nation, loving his people, right? But that's the point. So like in 59 and 3 in Isaiah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Isaiah 59 and 3.
Isaiah 59:3. For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies. Your tongue hath muttered perverseness. None calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity.
Go ahead.
They hatch cockatrice eggs and weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed, breaketh out into a viper.
Jump to 7.
Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their path.
Exactly what we have in this present day, right? Nothing has changed. So that's what Isaiah, going back to chapter 1, that's what he's talking about right here. When Yahweh was saying, like, look, what's the point? What's the point of you coming through and celebrating and bringing this, keeping these new moons? Because remember, back then we were more connected to the laws of the Most High. We had not gone through captivities besides Egypt. If anything, we had, learned from the nations around us, but we still had our culture within us. That was the main thing that we knew how to live as, right? How to live as law-abiding Israelites. But even then, it's like we were still committing all the sins and iniquities that we're committing in this present day. So that's what the Most High is like, look, what's the point of you coming through if you're doing evil constantly? All right, so go ahead and continue on.
Verse
What is it?
17.
Khan.
Verse
No,
17.
16, no?
16. Verse 16, wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil.
Right, so he's giving, look, merciful. The Most High being merciful. He's like, look, all you got to do is wash, make yourself clean, and put all your wickedness away from existing. So just repent, basically, right? Go ahead.
Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sin be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow.
And see, that's one thing that we got to not take for granted, how the Most High, he always tells us, look, I know you've been slipping. Says, man, your sins are like scarlet. But he says, let's talk about it, right? Which is a simple conversation. The Most High is like, look, all I got to do is make sure I get through you, right? And you really realize, you understand that the whole point of your existence is what he said earlier. He says, seek judgment, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow, and everything else that we find in the Torah. Look out for each other, right? He says, all you got to do is that. And I'll make sure that scarlet, them sins, them heavy sins you've had are going to be washed away. And then now you're going to be white as snow. Simple as that, right? Go ahead.
Verse 18, come now, and let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If ye be willing and obedient, ye shall eat the good of the land.
Right? That easy. But what?
But if ye refuse and rebel, ye shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
Exactly. And when you continue reading chapter 1, it talks about, everything that Israel was doing. Just rebelling and pretty much playing a whore. Play the harlot, which, all throughout the prophets, you see the same story. When you read about the northern kingdom, you see the same thing. But this is what, Isaiah opens up with. Let's jump down to chapter 2. So he already told us, look, you do evil, these things are going to befall upon you, right? You go ahead and come back and be obedient unto the Most High. Back to Deuteronomy 28:1. It says all these blessings will overwhelm you. Go ahead, chapter 2.
Isaiah chapter 2, verse 1. The word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem.
All right, so now he's talking about both kingdoms, Judah and Jerusalem. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
All right, so imagine this. We in Isaiah, right? We still in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Hezekiah. So the captivity hasn't came to fruition yet. But yet, in chapter 2, neither has, the captivity of the northern kingdom. But yet right here he's already breaking it down, showing you the abilities and the blessings of prophecy, right, that the Most High gave him. He's talking about pretty much what Jeremiah 50 and 33 talk about. He says at the end, in Micah 4, it talks about at the end, once all these judgments fulfill themselves, right, the northern and the southern kingdom will come back together, and it says the law will come out of the nation of Israel, and they shall be judging the whole world. Go ahead.
Verse 4, and he shall judge among the nations. Verse 3, and many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
Con. And this is what trips me out when we talking about this, in the public, with the public, mainly to Israel, but out in public, right? And people trip out like, oh, that's not fair. How is this not fair when the Most High has been whooping us for our disobedience? Right. And he's letting us know, look, the 1/3, not everybody, not all Israel, the 1/3 that decides to come back and sticks to being obedient to the law, that 1/3 is going to be able to judge the rest of the nations. And when we're going to go to chapter 14. It says the rest of the nations don't have it the same, but they pretty much have the option to also be obedient to Israel and be in a good situation. But my point is that the Most High is punishing us. He's been punishing us for years. I mean, we're talking about, what is this, about, I think, 700 years before Christ that we're reading about, or probably even more, right? And until this present day, what is it, 2021? We still paying for our transgressions, for the iniquities of our forefathers. But regardless, prophecy is going to come to fruition. It came to fruition for us so far, right? So going back, like I said, chapter 2 is talking about the future. You jump to 14. Hopefully, it makes more sense. But let's see what 14 talks about, because it's exactly the same thing that we're reading about in chapter 2. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 14, verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob.
So when you read the chapter, and when you just read it without understanding it, it's like, what's Isaiah talking about? He's all over the place. He's not. But remember, he's a prophet. He low-key going to be all over the place. He's going to be through centuries, millenniums, right? He's talking about all these different time frames. So right here, he's telling you, look, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob. That's one thing that we as a nation take for granted. Most High said, look, no matter what, I'm still going to have mercy on you. The first chapter that we read is like, look, let's have a conversation. I'm going to tell you how it is. All we got to do is this. All you got to do is this. Repent. Look out for your nation, and we'll be good. You'll be good. We'll have a good, we'll be friends, and I'll hold you down. I'll protect you. I'll have your enemies fall before you. So he's telling us right here. Now in the future, it's like, look, and Jacob, he's going to have mercy upon Jacob, and his chosen still going to be Israel. And what else?
Verse 2, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids.
You see that? So now it's saying, and the people shall take them, right, and bring them to their place. And it says, now these individuals, the other nations, we've been servants for how long now? Right?
At least 400 years.
At least here, right? But before that, we've been servants from what we're reading right here. We're about to be servants to all these other nations. And even before that, we were servants in the book of Judges to all types of nations for our disobedience. When you look at Israel, man, it's only been a couple of years that we actually were in power and we were at peace. Other than that, it's always war and us falling captives and victims to our own iniquity, but falling captives to all these other nations, being that was the recompense that the Most High would, place upon Israel. But he's telling you right here, like, look, now these individuals, these other nations that we were captives to, that's why when you read Revelations, what is it, 13, I think, 13 and 10? It makes more sense. And they don't sound like something that's, I guess, too extreme or whatever, like people may think it is. It's not. It's judgment. The Most High is just. I mean, look at all the hell that we've been put through and still be going through, right? You see homicide just increasing every year in neighborhoods and cities that are supposed to be what? We're not even third world countries, but we living in third world conditions. And soon it's going to be even worse than that, right? Although people don't believe that. I mean, look at what we have right now. You are being forced to be vaccinated with poison and still think and believe that you're a free man, free woman. That's crazy. But that's the state of our people, that captive state that is not even, as much physical as it is mental and spiritual nowadays. But that's what Israel, I mean, that's why Israel is right here. The Most High is letting us know, like, look, it's all going to flip around, because for that small percentage of us that decide to go against the system, and not because we want to rebel against the system, but for the fact that the system is wicked, that those individuals are going to be recompensed for holding their ground, for respecting the law, for respecting the Most High. So it says, in return, he says, these individuals shall possess them in the land, what?
And in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow.
Imagine that. Imagine how that's going to feel. Looking at brothers in here, just, man, it's like, yeah, we living, we going through it, but it's like, wow, you wake up. There's not enough hours in the day to accomplish and complete whatever we want to, whatever we need to, not even want to. You know, it's like, it's we living in a burden. We in Jacob's trouble, right? So he's saying, after you putting in all this work, he says, I will give you that rest, which is going back to what Isaiah 66 talks about, which the New Testament talks about, which is what Yahweh Shai talked about. So that's what I'm saying. It all connects. It all connects, and it talks about, you know, this right here, this chapter that we're reading about, the verse that we're reading about, it's talking about that eternal Sabbath. Imagine that, the eternal Sabbath, right? But that's what Israel will obtain if we stick to the script. But go ahead, continue on.
Verse 3, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers.
Exactly. So this, you know, it's a future prophecy, because when you see us, when we came out of Babylon, it wasn't eternal, right? To an extent, yeah, after 70 years of serving captives in Babylon, yeah, we came back. But that's another thing that, you know, we're going to get to in a minute, in about, what is it, chapter 19 or 20, that Isaiah also prophesied about. So it's deep. Like, I know it's a long book, but if you really put time into reading it, and not reading it, but understanding it, because it is difficult. You know, it's one of the books. I've tried to, you know, read through Isaiah so many times, and it's like I get in so deep, and then I got to start, you know, and do it again. But over the years, and knowing and understanding the rest of the scriptures, it makes perfect sense how, like, he covers pretty much all the captivities. You know, I mean, Daniel does it too, but it just goes mainly into, like, the kings and the powers, right? But Isaiah goes into details as far as all the captivities that we were going to go through, what was going to happen, right? And then the end result of us, what do you call it, being obedient and coming back to the law, repenting and coming back to the law. So it's, you know, I would recommend for people to really, really take some time and, you know, try to search it out and really understand it. But let's go back to Isaiah 2.
2 and verse 4.
Yeah.
Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 4, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
Exactly. So that's a future prophecy, right? Let's jump down to, well, yeah, go ahead and read 5.
O house of Jacob, come ye, and let us walk in the light of the Lord. Therefore thou hast forsaken thy people, the house of Jacob, because they be replenished from the east, and are soothsayers like the Philistines.
Look at that. See, these are the type of things. That's why he was pissed off. He's like, look, you out here supposed to be the Most High's chosen, right? But yet you acting like these Philistines. You know, you out here with all this voodoo, this witchcraft, all this nonsense, right? And instead of looking out and obeying the law and looking out for your people, you out here trying to be like the other nations, which is what you have right here in Babylon, in America. We always trying to be like everybody else but us. Go ahead.
and they please themselves in the children of strangers.
Exactly. Jump down to 12.
Verse 12. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low.
So see how that relates to our people right now? Our people think because they got that bag and they got a certain status that, look, nothing could touch them. The Most High said, look, for the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty. That's what's, man, we saturated with that nonsense out here in this world, especially in America. America out here, man, we think we undefeatable, that nothing could touch us. Then all of a sudden you hear these stories about people getting put to death off of some vain nonsense. Because you out here bragging, you got a damn expensive diamond on your forehead. You out here talking about the whips you about to go scoop up. And then you going live, right? And then you wondering, how did it go down? Like, come on, it's telling you our history has been about envy, about murdering, right? About coveting, pridefulness. So it's like, what do you expect if you go ahead and partake of those lifestyles? That's what the Most High said, the meek shall inherit the earth. But it's letting you know right here, look, the day of the Lord, the day of the Lord of hosts shall be for all those individuals that feel like they're untouchable. Go ahead.
For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and every one that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. And upon all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and upon all the oaks of Bashan, and upon all the high mountains, and upon all the hills that are lifted up, and upon every high tower, and upon every fenced wall.
So basically it's breaking down all the lavish living styles that our people always, call it the American dream, right? At least that's what they used to call it. But, making it, right? So he's letting you know, like, all these individuals that are living in this state of mind where, they better than anybody else, or they made it out the hood or whatever. He's like, look, the day of the Most High, that judgment is for those individuals. The same individuals like, look, Hakim, you could do whatever you need to do as long as you're not breaking laws. Because remember, we are not to be at the bottom. It says, if you follow these laws, even your enemies, they were talking about it in last night's class, even your enemies shall bow down, which is stuff that I myself have experienced, when we live in according to these laws, these statutes. Deuteronomy 4 tells you, he's like, these nations going to look and be like, damn, what is it about these people? There's something about these people that make them special, gifted, right? Anointed, separate, apart from everybody else. Even at a job, you're going to go from just being a regular employee to having some management status or running things. Why? Because they're going to see that diligence that you're supposed to be having, right? And then it talks about, these conditions in Jeremiah, 29? It says, look, set up your houses, marry your daughters, marry your sons, live at peace and prosper. So I don't know. At least in the past, a lot of people that we talk to, that I've talked to in this law, they make it seem like we're supposed to be at the bottom on some beggar type status, and that all the stuff in the world is just something that you completely got to get up out of the truth to be able to accomplish certain things. Nah, not at all. Look at our history. Look at Joseph. He was running things. Daniel, he was running things. Second in command. Everybody that you read about that was somebody in the law and the scriptures, whether it was males or females, they were running things. Remember, we're supposed to rehearse the righteous acts right here on this earth. And that is being able to govern people, being able to govern businesses and so forth. So don't use that as an excuse like, I want to live my best life and that law is not allowing me. I can't do it by abiding to these precepts. That's false. That's just an excuse. But again, the Most High is telling you right here, look, the day of the Most High is going to be for these individuals that you can't tell them anything. That swear that they're gods, that swear that they run their life. But look at this little Rona thing right now. And this is just the beginning. That you come out positive or whatever and be caught up in a hospital. Now all of a sudden, all your whole status and everything ain't worth a damn thing. Remember, without the Most High. That's another thing you read about if we get to Hezekiah. Hezekiah knew what was up. He cried unto the Most High. He prayed unto the Most High. The fact that he was on point with the Most High said, you know what? I'm going to grant you more life. It's crazy, man. This is just nuts. He even had the sun go backwards 10 lines, right? 10, I guess, what, 10 seconds maybe, or 10 minutes? Who knows, right? Yeah. I mean, it was held back. Time was held back because that was a confirmation. He's like, how can I be for, certain that the Most High is actually going to, keep his word, or that's actually the Most High. And he was able to set time back. He held the sun. He set the time back, right? So just showing you how, because somebody listening to this might be like, it's BS. That's a fictional type book, right? What they call it, Harry Potter nonsense. But hey, it's look at all the wonders of the Most High. That's what trips me out. You read about it, you see it, and we still don't believe. But the whole point is that brother got 15 extra years, so 15 years of life, just because he went and asked for and begged, not begged, he prayed to the Most High for those years. But just showing you, like, we out here thinking, we need to get the vaccination, or we need to go to the store, we need to go to the doctor. The last thing that we think about is the Most High. And that's what you got to get off, out of reading this, this book. Not just the book of Isaiah, but the whole script, the whole Bible. But this is what he's talking about right here. Let's jump to chapter 3. So he's telling you in chapter 2 that all these proud people, all these individuals caught up in these religions, those are the ones that the Most High is going to come and check in the day of judgment. Go to chapter 3, and you can start at 3 and 1.
Isaiah 3 and 1. For behold, the Lord of hosts, doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff, the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water.
Imagine that. So he's taking away basically what Jeremiah talks about in 17, our whole heritage. He says, I'm doing away with all that. Why? Because of your disobedience. What else does he take?
The mighty man and the man of war, the judge and the prophet, and the prudent and the ancient.
Imagine, what is a nation without any of that?
Right.
What we are in this present time. What we've been for thousands of years. Nothing. Not a nation. Just saying everything that's going to hold you down to be successful, to be a nation, he says, I'm taking all that away from you. What else?
The captain of 50.
Armies.
And the honorable man. And the counselor. And the cunning artificer. And the eloquent orator.
All the education, right? We out here at the bottom. And it didn't just start recently. It didn't just start with these heathens that we've been captives to. But it's been since back then when we disobeyed the Most High. Because look, it's only, like I said, it's only been a couple, even after he brought us out of these captivities, it was only a certain amount of our people, and for a certain amount of time, that we decide to bow down and obey the Most High. So as a majority, and that's why when we put it out there, but every nation's gone through, captivity or poverty or whatever. No, but as a nation, only Israel has been affected the way that we've been affected by these prophecies. So he's telling us, look, all these things I'm going to take away. What else? Look at what 4 talks about.
And I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. And the people shall be oppressed, every one by another, and every one by his neighbor. The child shall behave himself proudly against the ancient, and the base against the honorable.
Imagine that. That's been happening since probably maybe like 80s, 90s out here?
Yeah.
In this present generation, in our generation. Because back then it was a little better, right? From captivity, from the 1600s, 1400s, but up to like about I want to say 1980, 1980 still it wasn't that bad, but going into the late 80s and the 90s, look at it now. So it's the same thing. So you could kind of get an understanding of how he was breaking stuff down. He's like, look, all this is going to happen. Because obviously it was still, to an extent, Judah was still abiding in the law of the Most High. But there were already moving away from the law, right? Instead of being committed to the Most High, they were going away from Abba's laws and stepping into the state that we in this present time, right? So he said, I'm gonna have all these youngsters rule and have no respect for their elders. Go ahead.
Verse 6.
Jump down to 8.
Verse 8. For Jerusalem is ruined, and Judah is fallen, because their tongue and their doings are against the Lord, to provoke the eyes of his glory.
Look at what he compares us to again. Read 9.
Verse 9. The show of their countenance doth witness against them, and they declare their sin is Sodom. They hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves.
Imagine that. So that means we was out there, homosexual activities, all that nonsense was happening. And they hide it not. You read about that. So again, that's why, I'm going to say it a couple of times this evening. There's nothing new under the sun. Let it sink in. Like, really, there's nothing new under the sun. Like trends, they come and they go, but they come back again, right? So this is exactly what we're reading about. And he's like, look, all this, once it goes down, the Most High is going to take all that power away from you. And you're going to be ran by children. It's going to go even into the women in a minute. And then it's going to go into even what the women were going to be acting like, which is, again, same thing. Same thing that that's been repeated, that it's taken place, again, since like the 60s, right? Because it was around the 40s that they were talking about equal rights and so forth. Then the 60s, 70s, bam, hit the 80s, hit the 90s. Now everybody wanted 50-50, being males and females. When there's an order in 1 Corinthians, it talks about it. In the first book, in Genesis, it talks about the woman was made to be the helpmeet of the man. But since society says, that there's supposed to be equal rights, that's what we cater to nowadays. And now it's even worse. The women's the head. Not even the women, the kids are the head, just like we're reading about right here in Prophet in Isaiah chapter 3. But go ahead, continue on.
Verse 6. When a man shall take hold of his brother.
Verse 9.
Verse 9. The show of their countenance doth witness against them, and they declare their sin is Sodom. They hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves.
You see that? Everything that happens to Israel has happened and continues to happen is the reward that we bring upon ourselves. It's just because of the evil doings that we do. That's why we get what we get. Go ahead.
Verse 10. Say ye to the righteous that it shall be well with him, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him.
So see, that's a confirmation right there for like our people that look around and feel like there's no hope. Because that's like low key, you feel like that sometimes. You're like, damn, okay, let's say a small congregation, it's 10 of us. It's 20 of us, but everybody around us, including our families, is just doing wickedness. The Most High said, look, don't worry about it. He says, say ye to the righteous that it shall be well with him, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. That's what you understand when you read Revelations 20 and 12. It says, and the books were open, and so was this book. It says, and everybody was judged according to their works. In Esdras, it talks about not focusing in the end of the wicked, but focus on what the righteous is supposed to be doing. And so in Ecclesiastes 12 and 13, it talks about, look, the conclusion of the whole matter is keep the law, fear the Most High, and keep the commandments of the Most High. Because that is our whole duty. So just, showing you the balance that's always present with the Most High. It says, look, if you're righteous, you're going to be all right. But then it says, verse 11.
Verse 11, woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths.
Just like our current churches and pastors and preachers. It says, them that lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths. Jump down to 15.
Verse 15, What mean ye that ye beat my people to pieces, and grind the faces of the poor, saith the Lord God of hosts? Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore the Lord will smite a scab the crown of their head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts.
Same thing that we have right now. That's all we hear about. Bad bees left and right. And the music, our own women contributing to all this crap. But that's why he said, in verse 10, it says, the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks. That pride. You can't tell me nothing. I'm a bad bee. I'm an independent woman. I don't need a man. He says, okay, cool. Since you want to be on that tip, guess what? I'm going to bless you with some curses. Scabs. He even talks about their secret parts. Read 18.
And that day the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their calls, and their round tires like the moon, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers.
So see, it's talking about right here, it's talking about how Israel used to carry themselves. We weren't poor people. We weren't individuals that had no class, had no style. I mean, we are the salt of the earth. But it's telling you, look, I'm going to take all that away from you. All that away from you. And then if you jump down to 24.
Verse 24, and it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well-set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty.
Imagine that. Because people are going to be like, nah, we still looking fly. Yeah, but guess what? You're looking fly with all this stench on you. And with all this nonsense, STDs. I mean, you look at our people. Now it's in full vanity because remember what? Back then, it talks about Deuteronomy 28 and 56. It talks about our women wouldn't even set their soles on the bare ground, right? They wouldn't be walking around barefooted. So it's not talking so much about the material stuff, but it's talking about the whole balance. And it's letting them know, like, look, now since you want to go and be full of vanity, it says, look, I'm going to make sure that your secret parts are infected with all kinds of nonsense, which is what you have now. Because you look at women, they might look good or whatever, but man, you really examine them, all types of STDs, all types of illnesses. And for the reason for all that is that what? Instead of being humble and shamefaced, they shameless. Roaming around acting like they men, like they running things. But it's just showing you again what Isaiah was talking about. Isaiah was prophesying about all these different time frames that we was going to be living in, and he was showing us exactly how it was going to be going down. Because when you read about the history, for example, Isaiah 4, what we just read about, all these things is what our people, and our women still adorn themselves like this, but for the most part, when you look at the ratchet type women, you know, that be out here, which is a good amount of our people, of our females, they're completely the opposite of this, right? They're out here 2, 3 in the afternoon with flops and damn bonnets on their head, right? Haven't even showered. Makeup from 2 nights ago. It's crazy, but the Most High is letting you know, like, look, this was going to happen because our women, everything was going to be out of order. Because when we started chapter 3, he said about, he talked about all the order that was to be in a nation, all the individuals that were supposed to hold a nation down. He says, I'm going to take all that away from you. He said all the individuals, all the eloquent individuals that were supposed to be, educating our people. He said all that stuff is going to be taken away. Your whole culture is going to be taken away due to your disobedience. And then where we at now? At the bottom. That's why they call us savages, Indians, good for nothings, welfare recipients. Like we really depend on these heathens when we were the ones that we are the ones that are supposed to be running them. But due to our disobedience, our slothfulness, and everything else, we in that situation. But that's what it's talking about right here. It says, and 26, it talks about the gates will lament. Go down to chapter 4.
Verse 1.
Yeah.
Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1.
Jump down to 4.
Verse 4. When the Lord shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and shall have purged the blood of Jerusalem from the midst thereof by the spirit of judgment.
You see that? So he says, but guess what? It's not going to be forever. The Most High is going to come through, and by the spirit of judgment, he's going to clean all this out. He's going to clean the filth out of the land. Imagine, we have Figueroa, we have Western, on the west and on the east side, right? Full of prostitution. Now you only have women, who knows what you have out there? Trannies. You have everything out there. That's pollution. Most High says, you will bring chaos upon the earth. You got individuals out here blowing their checks on, blowing their stimulus on prostitutes down the block, right? But can't sustain their families. Showing you how this just brings complete destruction to our people. But he's saying, it's all good. I'm going to put them through this judgment. And through the spirit of judgment, I'm going to clean all that out. It says, and by the spirit of burning. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And the Lord will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion, and upon her assemblies, a cloud and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For upon all the glory shall be a defense.
Mm-hmm. So again, summing it up, he's showing you what's going to happen or what's been happening for us in our wickedness. And it also gives you, look, but if you repent or if you stick to the script, then understand, other Israelites that are going through the process along with you, if you're being obedient, you're going to be recompensed properly. Like Romans 8:18 talks about. It says even if you suffer through these through your life, right? You still going you ain't gonna be able to compare all the tribulations that you live in this present world to the recompenses that the Most High is gonna give us. Let's jump down to 5.
Isaiah 5:1. Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved's touching his vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
My well-beloved hath a vineyard in a very fruitful hill, and he fenced it, and gathered out the stones thereof, and planted it with the choicest vine, and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein. And he looked that it should bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes.
You see what happened? So the whole point of the Most High was for this vineyard to be a vineyard of good fruit, right? But instead, it says it brought forth wild grapes. Wild grapes. And you might think, oh, well, it's wildlife or whatnot. No, it's talking about fruit, wicked fruit. So Most High said, look, it says it brought forth this wicked fruit. I'm going to do away with it. Then you jump down to 7. It talks about that. It talks about the vineyard being Israel, Judah being the pleasant plant, right? But then for all the wickedness, it says that the Most High was going to do away with these individuals, right? Then we're going to jump down to read 8 down to 12, or down to 13 actually.
Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 8. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth.
So going back again to Deuteronomy 7, it's like, look, mind your business. Take care of your household. Take care of your nation. He says, destruction to those that go from place to place, from field to field, right? Trying to be in the midst of everything. Because that's what America teaches you. Equality, so-called, when there is none, right? The melting pot, where you're supposed to learn from everybody's cultures and take a part of, take a little bit of each. Nah, the Most High said, look, destruction to all those individuals. Go ahead.
Verse 9.
Down to 11.
Jump down.
11, yeah.
Verse 11. Woe unto them that rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink, that continue until night, till wine inflame them.
So you see, these are the same things that are happening right here in Babylon, in America. It's the same things that were happening back then. And the same things that brought the destruction to Israel, the captivity, right? The state of oppression. So it says you got individuals that are in everybody's mix. You got individuals that are waking up to strong drink. Go ahead.
And the harp and the viol, the tabret and pipe and wine are in their feasts, but they regard not the work of the Lord, neither consider the operation of his hands.
So see, so we partake of these so-called feasts, or even like let's say in the world, right, Christmas, supposedly in commemoration of Christ's birth or whatever. But it's like Christ is nowhere near their thoughts, nowhere in their thoughts. It says all it is a time to turn up, like you see Israel, Cinco de Mayo. Nobody knows what the hell happened Cinco de Mayo, but it's a day to get ish face, right? 4th of July, the same thing. Every Thanksgiving, the same thing, right? But that's the same state that we were in back in the day. Go ahead. What else were we doing?
Verse 13, therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge.
We were also without knowledge. Go ahead.
And their honorable men are famished.
And no honorable men to hold us down, to be examples. Go ahead.
And their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore hell hath enlarged herself, and opened her mouth without measure, and their glory, and their multitude, and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into
You
it.
see that? So it says all those individuals that love that state, they will go straight into it. Remember, hell is a state of mind, state of chaos. And that's pretty much, where our people was back in the day that he was prophesying about, and he was prophesying that in the future it was going to be the same thing. Jump down to 20, same chapter.
Verse 20, woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, and sweet for bitter.
And for all those unbelievers, right, all those people that doubt, this should be a prime example, because you read about it in the Bible. A lot of people don't want to give credit to the Bible. Go ahead and open your history books. I know some people are biased about that too. Oh, his history. I mean, go in some European, like some libraries out there in England and Europe, right, where they actually have all the factual stuff without, the extra nonsense or cover-ups. But you look at that and confirm that all this happened. Our people went into captivity. There's books, there's examples, there's documentation outside of the Bible that proves all these captivities that we read about in the Bible coming to fruition, happening. I mean, look at us out here. You hear about the what do you call it, the transatlantic voyages, right? You hear about, the individuals all the Native Americans that got taken by the Queen, by the Crown, to Spain, conditioned and brought back. I mean, you got places where you could visit right now, the schools in which they indoctrinated our people, cut our hair and condition us with their ways of life, shaved us, right, dressed us up like them instead of our holy garments. So right here is telling you, like, look, woe to them that call evil good and good evil, which is what we're doing in this life right now. Nah, you know what? It's for the kids. It's for the kids, this, that, and the third, right? We always blame it on the kids when we're supposed to be the ones that lead the kids. But he's telling you, look, all this destruction is going to come upon these individuals. Read 21.
Verse 21, woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes, and prudent in their own sight.
Right, go ahead.
Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength to mingle strong drink, which justify the wicked for reward.
Imagine that. Go ahead.
And take away the righteousness of the righteous from him.
Man, imagine how stupid we are. Man, you got that crate challenge going on right now, right? People jacking their hips up, jacking up their backs, falling on their face.
There's a sister that died from it.
Already?
Yeah,
man, imagine that. People dying. And it's crazy how all this stupid nonsense picks up so quick. It's like everybody in every hood doing it. Homeboy posted some nonsense today. He works for the school, right? He's like, oh, I'm messing around. I'm going to try it. I'm like, where all these crates coming from? It's like it starts as a joke, but you don't understand that these are methods for our people to continue deeper in this ish hole, right? But That's a man. It's like, how long will ye simple ones, right? Continue in simplicity. But we bring things that are gonna get us out of this situation. Nobody wants to listen. Again, it was no different back then. Because you look at, I always remember Jeremiah 28. I think he's talking about, I think it's chapter 28. And the response that they give him is like, but for what? There is no hope. When he's coming from the straight mouth of the Most High, telling them like, look, all you got to do is this, Israel, repent, come back. Because if you don't, the Most High is planning something real bad for you. Imagine this prophet is telling them like, look, the Most High, your creator, got something in store that you're not going to like. Something that you have not seen. And yet the response was like, but for what? There is no hope. That's how simple Israel is, man. But it's showing you right here, like the same thing, man. Our people were caught up in simplicity, caught up in getting jacked up, drunk, just turning up, you know, because there's nothing wrong with turning up, but having a balance, knowing that we still at war. I mean, David was doing it. He was out there dancing and enjoying himself, right? But when it was time to put in work, he was ready. If it came that night, he was ready. If it came at that moment, he was ready to defend the law, to defend the Most High, defend the nation and the people. So there's nothing wrong with that. Because a lot of people get the understanding, like, or misunderstanding that, oh, we just on some square type tip. Like, nah, trust me, we got mad feasts. We celebrate feasts that are 8 days long, 7 days long, right? Back to the point, brothers is burnt out from, celebrating. But there's still a balance. That's what the Most High said. Like, look, their whole focus, because he talked about the feast. He's like, but their focus wasn't me no more. It wasn't the law. It was just them getting, jacked up. But that's what that talks about. Let's go to 6. And 6 is basically where Isaiah gets commissioned to be the prophet of the Most High. Go ahead, 6 and 1.
Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died,
which was around 740 BC,
I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple.
Mm-hmm.
Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly.
Imagine that. These creatures, 6 wings, right? And he's looking at this. This is appearing to the brother Isaiah, right? Go ahead.
Verse 3, and one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory.
Mm-hmm.
And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke.
So now imagine that. I know it's kind of hard to imagine because we don't really see the whole picture, right? But think about it. Is this creature with 6 wings? Imagine the face on it. Imagine the loudness of the voice. Now everything's shaking and it's smoke, it's smoky up in that mud, right? And understanding that the glory, obviously Isaiah was connected with the Most High, and understanding the situation, how Israel was so corrupt, yet he's saying, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, and the whole earth is full of his glory. So I don't know if it connects, but it's like, imagine in that situation, you'd be like, man, I'm not worthy of this. So that's how Isaiah's feeling. Let's see what happens.
Verse 5, then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips.
So imagine that, because we understand our history. Back in the day, it was only, the sons of Aaron that were able to, come and connect with the Most High in the form that he's about, he's witnessing. So he's like, man, I'm a man with unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of people of unclean lips. Not necessarily the lips, but just the actions that our people were a part of, right? Go ahead.
For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand.
All right, so this live coal that is coming from the altar, right? What was burnt for the Most High, something pure. So just bringing this out to understand, why is it that Isaiah knew so much? How was it that Isaiah how was he able to prophesy about Yahweh Shai in his life in such detailed form, right? It's showing you that he wasn't just a regular individual. Look at what's going to happen to him. So this seraphim, he comes through with a live coal in his hand and does what?
which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar.
Uh-huh.
And he laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this hath touched my lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged.
So he was purged. He says, look, there's a mission for you. He said, but we're about to read about that, right? So he's like, look, before you go any further, we're going to make sure that you are a holy individual, a holy vessel. Kind of like playing the part of a priest, right? Because the priests weren't able to go up in the Holy of Holies no type of way. There were certain things that they had to, they couldn't even sweat. They were supposed to be clean individuals, holy individuals, separated from the rest of Israel, right? So this is what's taking place with the brother Isaiah right here, prophet Isaiah. He's being purged from all his iniquity. Let's go ahead and read 8.
Verse 8, Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for
Now
us?
here's Yahweh. He's asking, right, who shall I send, and who will go for us? Go ahead.
Then said I, Here am I, send me. And he said, Go, and tell this people, Hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not.
Mosai's a trip up. I mean, that's the angel, right? The messenger talking to Isaiah. Obviously, it's a message from the Most High. But it's a trip. He's like, all right, who's going to go? He's like, I'll go. I'll handle this mission. And then he's like, okay, cool. You know, and he says, read that part again, 9.
Hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not.
Right? It sounds like it don't make sense. But once you understand, it makes complete sense, right? But this is the state that we deal on a constant. Like, you just dealing with a significant other, a son sometimes, a mom, and it's like they feel like they all up there and they know what's up, but it's like, look, I'm gonna tell you exactly what it is, and you're not fully there. That's why it's in the New Testament, right? He that has ears, let him hear. So it's the same concept that we're talking about right here in the book of Isaiah. Go ahead, continue on.
Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate.
Man, imagine that. Basically, he's telling, look, it's coming.
Right.
They don't want to listen. All right, I'm going to clean you out. I'm going to prepare you and go take them this message. Now it's about to get real ugly here in this land, right? So that's at the, like I said, around 740 BC, after the death of Uzziah. That's when he was commissioned to be the prophet of the Most High. Let's jump down to 7.
Isaiah chapter 7, verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin the king of Syria, and Pekah the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim, and his heart was moved.
Man, think about that. Syria is confederate with Ephraim. Ephraim is the head tribe of the northern kingdom. So look at all the chaos that's happening amongst our nation. Our brother just covered it, I think it was this week, right, on Saturday, about the lesson that was about the poodle, but it was he brought out Solomon. Over all that little, it might not sound like anything big, but due to that transgression, we in this situation. And just showing you how disobedience or just even pleasing people, bending the law just to please an individual, how big of a consequence that could have. And this is still the effects of all that, the results of our forefather Solomon committing what he did, to the point that now Ephraim and Syria are confederate against Judah. Go ahead.
And his heart was moved, and the heart of his people, as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind.
So, man, imagine how he was feeling like, really? What kind of nonsense is that? Right? Go ahead.
Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Sheir Jeshub,
Damn.
thy son, at the end of thy conduit of the upper pool, in the highway of the fuller's field.
But actually, there's a meaning to that. She'ir Yeshub, right? Which is a remnant shall return, right? So he's out here talking. It's prophetic. This is one of his sons. So his name is a remnant shall return. Watch. Go ahead.
And say unto him, Take heed and be quiet. Fear not, neither be faint-hearted for the two tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and of the son of Remaliah. Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah, and vex it, and let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabiel.
Go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord God, It shall not stand.
You see that? Most High said like, nah. It's not gonna work. You're like, this king's still holding it down. I'm working with you. Just let him know, confirm to him that it's not gonna work. Go ahead.
Neither shall it come to pass. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years
So 65 years, Salakia, go ahead.
shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people.
Man, imagine that. So that's what I'm telling you. So now you kind of get where we at. 722 minus 65 years, right? So he's letting them know, like, look, Ephraim walling out. Okay, well, look, I'm telling you off the top, that's not going to work. In 65 years, man, he said Israel's not even going to, I mean, Ephraim, which is Israel, northern kingdom, is not even going to be a people. That's harsh. That's Israel right there. That's the Most High's people, the Most High's chosen, his elect. But showing you how he does not play no games, man. And that's what I trip out on. When we talk conversations with family, with individuals, Israel, period, is like, they look at us like we crazy. It's like, bro, look, Most High has not messed around. We had a lesson, I think it might have been in Spanish, or maybe we did cover it in English last time, but it's about the kings of the northern kingdom. Most High was, man, the way he was doing it, it was like, man, everybody that pisseth on the wall, none of them are going to be left. And their bodies going to be picked by the dogs, by the animals, by the fowls. They ain't even going to have a proper burial, right? That's heavy. And it came to happen. It came to fruition. By who? By the hands of Israel themselves. And that was the story when you read about the northern kingdom kings. Every king was either assassinated, right? Or, yeah, for the most part, they were assassinated by the next king that followed, right? And it was from the same, most of them, from the same tribe. It's the same families, right? So imagine that. But it was all the works of the Most High. Why? Due to the disobedience that our people were committing. It might sound crazy. Oh, how could the Most High do that? No, he just allows whatever our works are recompensed. That's as easy as it is. But I know it's complicated for a lot of people to understand. But that's exactly what it is. And that's what he's saying right here. Like, look, Ephraim's not even going to be a people in 65 years. Go ahead.
Verse 9, And the head of Ephraim is Samaria.
He's talking about Samaria. When we read about the history, you can read about that. What happened in the days of Hosea. Go ahead.
And the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If you will not believe, surely ye shall not be established. Moreover, the Lord spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord.
So he's like, I'm good. I hear you. I got it. All right. So that's the beginning of 7. When we go into 7 and 14, let's see who he starts talking about. Go ahead.
Verse 14, Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel.
Imagine that. Right? So look at, as soon as we in chapter 7, why you think it was necessary for the seraphim to come through and cleanse our brother Isaiah from all his iniquity and purify him? Remember, these things are the things that Isaiah has seen and he's writing about. Again, we were 65 years prior to 722. No, not even. Was it 722? Or was that the end? Nah, 722 was the beginning of the Assyrian captivity, right? Around there?
Around there.
Yeah. So 722 before Christ. So we're talking about over 700 years before the Messiah, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, over 700 years. And he's having this vision, he's having this prophecy, and he's writing it down in detail, almost 1,000 years beforehand, right? Go ahead.
Verse 15, butter and honey shall he eat, that he
Mhm.
may know to refuse the evil and choose the good.
Uh-huh.
For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings.
Mm-hmm.
The
So he's
lo-
letting you know right here, talking about, the southern and the northern kingdom is going to be done with. But we could jump from there. Let me see. Yeah, so it's talking about more prophecy of what everything that was going to happen before that time. But 14 right there is giving you already a clue of what of Christ coming. You could read about Matthew 1:23. You could read about it in Luke 1:35. But going back to that, read 14 again.
Verse 14, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel.
Read 13 actually.
Verse 13, and he said, hear ye now, O house of David, it is a small thing for you to weary men. Is it a small thing for you to weary men, but will ye weary my God also?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel.
Exactly. So when we continue on, we'll understand what he's talking about. Like I said, it might not make sense as you go through it, but then remember, Judah is going to go ahead and profane the Most High as well, going into captivity. When we get to it, if we do get to it, but it talks about in the days of who was the last king, Hezekiah. In the late days of Hezekiah, this Jake pretty much sets himself up to be taken by the Babylonians. In Babylon is Judah's taken, and then in Babylon it says your sons will be eunuchs, right? So when you read about the days of Babylon, it jumps into the New Testament. Well, I mean, there's a lot of history between that. You got the Grecian captivity and all that, but just as a confirmation is letting you know right here, like, look, but I'm gonna give you a sign. When you think all is done and there's no hope, there's gonna be an individual that's gonna come. It's gonna be bare. He's gonna be bare by a virgin, right? And you should call his name Emmanuel, which means God is with us, right? So it's just giving you little clues, but that's how deep the scripture is. Like, again, 700 years plus before Christ, and we're reading about him already, right? But let's jump down to let's go to chapter 8.
Isaiah 8 and 1. Moreover, the Lord said unto me, take thee a great roll, and write it with a man's pen concerning Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And I took unto me a faithful witness to record, Uriah the priest, and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah. And I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived, and bare a son. Then said the Lord to me, call his name Maher Shalal Hashbaz. For before the child shall have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria.
So here's another prophetic vision of Isaiah. He's talking about what was going to befall upon the nation of Israel, which is read 4 again.
For before the child shall have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria.
So he's letting you know before he's at that age, all this is going to come to fruition, which is the riches of Damascus, the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. So it was talking about, let me see. Oh yeah, basically the Babylonian captivity, going into the Babylonian captivity. It's talking about Damascus shall be taken away before the kings of Assyria. Go ahead.
Verse 5, the Lord spake also unto me again, saying, For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloh that go softly and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, now therefore, behold, the Lord bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria and all his glory, and he shall come up over all his channels and go over all his banks. And he shall pass through Judah, he shall overflow and go over. He shall reach even to the rock, even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of my land, O Emmanuel. Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear, all ye of far countries. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces.
Right, so it's giving them a warning of the Assyrians coming in, because there was all these wars going on, and also Assyria was going to try to overtake Judah, but it didn't come to full fruition, because the Most High, that's what he already had said that what was going to happen, that it wasn't going to be, the southern kingdom wasn't going to be taken by Assyria. Let's jump down to 9. Let me see what I need from 9, if anything. We could jump to it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go straight to it. Yeah, go to 6.
Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace.
So again, we're talking about Christ, and 8 into 9 before this, before verse 6 is talking about Israel. I mean, the southern kingdom, Judah, not suffering as much as Israel had through the hands of the Assyrians, right? And then right here again is another prophecy talking about Yahweh Shai coming and what his role was going to be. It says his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Mighty Power, right? The Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Read 7.
Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this.
And see, when you are reading this in somewhat chronological order, we in the days after Uzziah, right? So it's around Jotham and maybe Ahaz is ruling now, right? So Ahaz is like almost the second to the last king. This is the second to the last king of the southern kingdom. For people that talk about, oh, that's Solomon, oh, that's David that he's talking about. David and Solomon are long gone. So no, it's not talking about them. It's talking about Yahweh Shai, off of the seed of what? Jesse, right? David, Solomon, the stem of Jesse, right? The loins of David and Solomon. So this is what he's talking about right here. He's talking about, the increase of his government and peace. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom. Right? Go ahead.
The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. The Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria,
You see that?
that say in the pride and stoutness of heart.
So this is going into what we read about in Matthew. Matthew, you start about 10, and then continue on, I think it's in Mark, right? Mark 7, when they're asking where is he going to go. But it's letting you know, like, Ephraim, because remember, right here, when you read in Hosea, the Most High commanded Judah not to deal with Ephraim no more. He says, leave them alone. They're so wicked. They're so caught up. He said in 65 years, Ephraim's not even going to be a name any longer. But he said in this day, when Yahweh Shai, when this individual that he's talking about right here in verse 6, once he's born, says even Ephraim shall understand who this individual is and come back to what Jeremiah 50 and 33 is talking about. But when you continue on reading in chapter 9, it goes back into the state that our people were in. If you read read 16 right quick.
Verse 16, for the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed.
So the same thing, right? Go to 10 and 1.
Isaiah 10 and 1, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed.
So you look at Israel, because it wasn't only the other nations, but a lot of our people were going ahead and dealing with this. Mainly, you look at it now, is the other nations writing all these decrees and laws or whatever. But our people were doing the same thing, though. That's when you look at Mark, when Yahweh Shai talks about it in Mark 7 and 6, he quotes Isaiah, which is Isaiah 13, I believe. Talk about ye hypocrites. But it all connects. Let me get it right quick. But continue on. Read, jump to 11.
Isaiah 11 and 1,
Yes, sir.
and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord.
Exactly. Talking about the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost that all the people talk about all the time, but really have no knowledge of what that is. The Most High right here is talking about, look, see how he's giving us clue like every other chapter about Yahweh Shai. And he's saying, out of the branch, right, out of the stem of Jesse, out of Jesse, this individual's going to come out. And it says, and upon him is going to rest these different spirits, right? The spirit of wisdom, understanding, counsel, might, knowledge, and the fear of the Most High. And also when you jump down to 3, of judgment. So here is giving you the definition of what the Holy Ghost consists of, and allowing you to understand that Yahweh Shai was indeed a representation of that Holy Ghost. That's why he said, when I leave, I'm gonna leave. What's the word that he uses? Yeah, but Yahweh Shai says, I'm gonna leave with you. Basically, he's gonna leave the Holy Ghost. I can't recall the word that he used. Redeem. What was it? Comforter. The water. Exactly. A comforter, right? Which is pretty much his spirit, right? So this is what Isaiah 11 is talking about. And continue on.
Verse 3, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins.
So now imagine all the people that actually took heed to what Isaiah is talking about. All these scholars, all these scribes, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, right? As time goes on, because remember, we in Israel still. We still got to go through the Babylonian captivity, the Persians, the Medes, the Grecians, and then finally the Romans, right? Like we read about 700 plus years of history. So that's, imagine how many generations. But it continues, right, from word of mouth, from the scrolls, right, that we kept, the records that we kept. It says the Most High has always had a remnant to continue his legacy, to continue the history, to bring forth to the next generation, right? So when you understand this, and then you hit the time of Matthew, the time of the Romans, the time of when Yahweh Shai came to fruition, then it all connects. That's why people were like, hold up, ain't this what the prophet was talking about? Ain't this individual what, it's in the, well, they didn't call it the Old Testament, but, isn't that who was prophesied, who the prophet Isaiah, or they will quote the prophet Jeremiah talked about? Mainly Isaiah, like I said. Isaiah is one of the books that talks about Christ. Proverbs talks about it as well. But Isaiah, like I said, it goes into a lot of detail. And it talks to you about right here where how he was going to judge the people. Read year 5, right?
Econ.
Um, let's see. Jump down to verse 12. This is crucial right here.
Isaiah 11 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall set up in his sign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcast of Israel.
Imagine that. He shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, which is at the beginning. Remember, he said, "Nah, till the land of the Samaritan, in the land of the Samaritan enter ye not." I got to build you first, because that's another prophecy that we're going to read about. He says he's going to first go to the house of Judah, deal with them, then the remnant. But he's letting you know right here that he was going to set an ensign, right, for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel. Go ahead.
And gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to John 7 and 35, which is what we was talking about a little while ago. And then also Mark 7 and 6, where it talks about. No, I'm just bringing that up. I want but I was just talking about, you can find that in Isaiah 29 and 13. Isaiah 29 and 13, precept together with Mark 7 and 6, talking about the hypocrisy of Israel, just doing that lip service. But go ahead and get John. 39.
John chapter 7 and verse 39. But this spake he of the
35,
Spirit.
Salaki, 35.
Verse 35. Then said the Jews among themselves, Whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles, and teach the Gentiles? What manner of saying is this that he said, Ye shall seek me, and shall not find me?
Imagine, go ahead.
And where I am, thither ye cannot come. And the last day, the great day of the feast.
That was it, Salaki, that was it. So that's right there. He's letting you know. That's a precept. That's now Yahweh Shai being in the scene. But we're reading about this prophecy in Isaiah 11 and 12. He says, he was going to gather the dispersed of the house of the outcasts of Israel. It says, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. 13.
Isaiah 13 and 1. The burden of Babylon, which
12 and 13, Salaki.
12 and 13.
11 and 13, my bad.
Okay. 11 and 13. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim.
Exactly. So it started happening ever since then. We talk about Jeremiah 50 and 33, right? But it started in the days of Yahweh Shai. And we still in that process. We still in that process because unfortunately we mess up, right? But ever since then, we've had brothers and sisters putting in that work. You read about it, in the gospel, all these brothers that came together, and ever since then, there's always been a remnant of these individuals to bring what we have nowadays. Because a lot of people think about, like, look at us like, is this a new sect? Who made this up? What religion is this? No, we're just living these prophecies. We are living the prophecies that we read about ever since the book of Genesis, through all the small and the big prophets that we're reading about in this evening right now with Isaiah. Because you see how it says, the envy shall be gone, basically, right? People were like, well, how is that? But we still envious amongst each other. You got to understand, in the book of Acts, our people were chilling with each other. You had Paul and you had Peter. And they say it was completed, but it began. And it's been in that process ever since then, ever since those days, right? What else does it talk about? 14?
Verse 14. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west, and they shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them.
Right, so we're not fully there yet, but we in the process. Go jump down to, what do I want from 12? 12 is basically talking about, Yahweh forgiving the nation and bringing us back together. Read 12 and 1, 12 and 2.
Isaiah 12 and 2. Behold, Yahweh is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. For the Lord Jehovah is my strength and my song. He also is become my salvation.
Which is pretty much in his name, in the name of Isaiah. You know, Yahweh is my salvation. Go ahead.
Therefore, with joy shall he draw water out of the wells of salvation.
So we could skip that. We'll skip from there. Let's go to, let's see, 13. 13, and you could start at 6.
Isaiah 13 and 6. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. And they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them, and they shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible.
Exactly. So it's talking about the prophecy of the destruction of Babylon, right? And it's, again, like we read, you know, there's no difference if it's either for Israel or for the nations. It says the same thing's going to happen. Anybody that's not with the Most High, anybody that doesn't want Yahweh to reign over them, like he himself said, bring hither and slay him before me. He's talking about that right here too. It's like it's going to be cruel and vicious day. Read 15.
Verse 15. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the
You
sword.
see that? Because exactly the same recompense that Israel was getting for being disobedient, the reason for that was because we were trying to be like all the other nations. So he's letting you know right here, everybody that's down with these nations, everybody that's found joined to these individuals, they're going to be done. They're going to be done away with, just like the other nations, right? Read 16.
Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Behold, I will...
That was it right there.
Okay.
But, you know, a lot of times we read about that. We read that and think about just the heathens. But the Most High, right before that, it said anybody that's joined with them, the same thing's going to happen to them, to us. The 2/3 of Israel that doesn't, you know, want to submit and abide to the laws of the Most High. It says the same exact thing's going to happen to us. So we read Isaiah 14 a little while ago. We went into it. The main thing that this chapter covers is, you know, the other nations coming in and being our possessions, or being the possessions of the 1/3. Then the second part also talks about it goes into Esau. When you go to 12 down to 17, it talks, yeah. But before that, just 12, basically 12 all the way down to 21. It's talking about, you know, Esau and how he thinks he's God and how he's going to ascend and set himself up, which is where we at right now. Read 13.
Verse 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation and the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
Imagine that. Mind you, we're not even in the Babylonian captivity. Showing you how Isaiah's breaking everything down. He's talking about these individuals right now ruling in America, starting off in the days of Rome, right? He says he will set himself, ascend above the heights of the clouds, and say that he is God. Say that he is the Most High. Go ahead.
Verse 16. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble,
Right? So now it's going into the future of what's going to happen to this individual. Go ahead.
that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners?
Imagine that. Ain't that what he's doing right now? He has the power to, open borders, shut borders. Look at Taliban supposedly out there acting a fool,
Right.
killing people, right? But who left the weapons out there for them individuals to do that? They get us out here. They don't even give us rights to own weapons in California and a couple of these states out here in the U.S. But yet they left choppers. They left, man, expensive stuff out there.
UAVs.
Exactly. All kinds of stuff for what? To do exactly what we're reading about right here. Isn't this that individual? Right? So jump down to 21. What's going to happen to this fool?
Verse 21, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities.
So that hasn't happened yet. It has not come to fruition. But it seems like it's right around the corner. Everybody upset. You read the articles on the news. Why is China setting up all these missiles that could hit America? Why is the Taliban, Russia, and China, trying to form a confederation? We read about it. Isaiah prophesied about these things. We there. We right around the corner. That's why it's so necessary. Everything that we read, you go into Matthew 24. Matthew 24 breaks it all down, right? We go back, Isaiah breaks it all down. Obadiah breaks it down. But this is what Isaiah's perspective of it is. Go ahead, continue on.
Verse 22, for I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord.
Okay, so we know that he did it for us. He did it to us, to Israel. So he's saying this about Babylon, about Esau. He says son, nephew, right? All the remnant. It happened to our forefathers. So it's a must that is going to come to fruition for these individuals. But continue on.
I will also make it a possession for the bitten and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts.
Con, let's jump to how is this going to happen? Or how is it going to be, I want to say, completed to an extent. Like I said, there's a lot of chapters in Isaiah. But for the most part, man, that's really all it talks about is the warning, the outcome of us disobeying the law or obeying it. It talks about the prophecy of Yahweh Shai. Many different chapters have certain precepts that talk about how he was going to come, where he was going to be born, to who he was going to be born, the things that were going to happen, right? The individuals that were going to try to come against him. But look at, it also talks about him in the future, right? After, this is something that hasn't happened yet. But look at what it talks about in regards to Yahweh Shai, 63:1.
Isaiah 63:1, who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save.
So he's asking, right? The question is, who is this individual? Imagine, man, it's crazy. Imagine being Isaiah. That's, wow.
Only imagine.
Man, I can't even imagine that. Man, he pretty much saw it all. So now he's having the vision of this individual that's walking, coming out of Edom, right, out of Bozrah, one of the strongholds of Esau. And he's saying an individual with great strength, right, whose garment was supposed to be white, but now is what? Go ahead.
Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat? I have trodden the winepress alone.
So there's the response of this individual, which, if you don't know, this is Yahweh Shai. And he's saying, I have what?
I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in my anger, and trample them in mine fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment.
So he said, look, there was nobody there with me. That's what we read about in the prophet too. He was going to come and judge these individuals. Who in particular? It said out of the land of Edom, the stronghold in Bozrah, right? And it says he has came from this place, and all the red that you see on his vesture, on his vestment, on his clothing, is the blood of these heathens. Why? Because I mean, you read about it in Obadiah. We read about it. You look at it. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they continue to do, and everybody's business, acting like they're God, which is what we read about right now in Isaiah as well, setting themselves up, saying, "I'm the Most High. You got to do what I tell you to do," mandating things left and right, always trying to get rid of Israel, putting us in a worse condition constantly, right? So he says, nah, Yahweh says, look, I'm a just God. And therefore, Yahweh Shai, my son, he's going to come do what he needs to do. Where'd you leave off, Hawk?
Verse 3.
Verse 3, right? Yeah, read 4.
Verse 4, for the day of vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. And I looked, and there was none to help, and I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore mine own arm brought salvation unto me, and my fury it upheld me.
Khan, jump to Revelations 19. Revelations 19, and you could read 12 down to 12 through 16.
Revelation chapter 19, verse 12. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood.
Imagine,
and
right?
his name is called the Word of the Most High.
Which is Yahweh Shai. So it says this individual with the same, imagine, again, Isaiah, Revelations, the last book. It says this individual, his vesture was dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of the Most High, which is what we read about in what, John 1 and 1. Go ahead.
And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean.
You read about the individuals in Revelation 6, which ask, Father, how long are we going to wait? When are we going to be able to recompense and avenge these heathens, these wicked, these evildoers? He said, look, here, have some white robes and chill, because not everything has come to fruition yet. There's still people that need to die like you died. There's still people that got to, still fight like you fought. But now these individuals in chapter 19 is talking about these are the armies that are clothed in fine linen, white and clean. 15.
And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty Yahweh. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Exactly. Imagine. And we're reading about that in Isaiah, almost some of the last chapter. But this is, like I said, what time is it? Pretty much done, right? But these are some of the things that you could find that the prophet Isaiah prophesied about. Let's go to a couple of the last ones. And like I said, also, you could read about, him prophesying about, what's his name? Sennacherib, I believe it is, that he was going to come against Israel, which is what we read about a little while ago. And they said he wasn't going to, succeed. You talk about, Hezekiah. It's a lot of different prophecies that came to fruition in his day, and a lot of stuff that we read about that has, already fulfilled itself, and like what we just read, in the previous chapters that we're still waiting on. Another thing is what we talked about earlier in Isaiah 66. For all my people that, and it's crazy for people that don't believe in the Old Testament, when it all connects. Like, I don't see how I'm going to be understanding Revelations 19 that we just read about right now without Isaiah.
He said, I come in the volume of the book.
Exactly. So it's mandatory. Israel that we really go through the book to be able to understand it. Because I know sometimes we get caught up and we start doubting, but it's like the answers are right here. If we read this, even how to deal on the day to day. Imagine David is a prime example. We get caught up and get upset at people for doing some kind of like some petty stuff. Saul was trying to kill the Jake, and he still took out the heathen. When he came through and was like, oh, guess what? I'm the one that took out, Saul, blah, blah, blah. Gave him that because he asked him. He's like, really? I didn't touch the Most High's anointed. And you, a nobody, a heathen, went ahead and did that? He had his men go ahead and beat him to death or whatnot, but just showing you, the balance once you understand what the Most High is really about. But get Isaiah 66 and we could read Isaiah 66 at the beginning. It talks also about the judgment at the end. It talks about those individuals that are going to be found eating, swine's flesh and the abomination of the mouse. Just to show you, for a lot of our people that say, oh, it don't really matter. The Levitical law don't matter. I mean, it's telling you right here. The last days, read 16 and 17 right quick.
Verse 16, for by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh.
Some flesh?
With all flesh.
Every individual. That's how you understand Revelations 20. And go ahead.
And the slain of the Lord shall be many.
You see that? It's gonna be many. It's not a light thing, because Isaiah 60. Isaiah also talks about it. Let's go hold that, but go back to Isaiah 49. Isaiah 49, 39 and 22 talks about, there is no peace, saith the Lord, unto the wicked ever. But get 49 in verse, you can start at 5.
49 and 5. And now saith the Lord that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength. And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth.
Exactly. So he said right here, look, it's a light thing. It's not that complicated. We make it complicated. Making all these, excuses and acting like it's it's so hard to rest on the seventh day, to keep these feasts, to put fringes on your clothing, to live in unity as a couple, to obey the basic laws, which is stuff that's beneficial for us. He told the prophet right here, like, look, it's a light thing to raise the nation, to gather the 1/3 of Israel. That's right. But we make it a big deal where it's like, you know what, that's done away with. The laws is done away with. Okay, cool. That's what he said. I will deal with everybody. Go back to 16, 66 and 16.
Isaiah 66 and 16. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many.
Go ahead.
They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination, and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord.
Imagine that. It don't even make sense. Sanctify themselves and purify themselves. But that's what our people do. Oh, I'm in deep meditation. I'm real spiritual. See, I don't believe in that book. God is a spirit. I'm a spirit. All this crap that they talk about. He says, okay, cool, whatever. While you're eating swine's flesh and the abomination of the mouse, it says, all shall be consumed together. Thus said the Most High, right? But let's jump down to 20.
Verse 20, and they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord out of all nations upon horses, and in chariots, and in litters, and upon mules, and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, saith the Lord, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord.
See that? Talking about that pure state, right? Purity, according to the Most High. Go ahead.
And I will also take of them for priests and for Levites, saith the Lord. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain.
Exactly. So you see how it all connects? Because right before that, in 63, we talked about judgment. He talked about judgment, which we went into Revelations 19. So after all that has, come to fruition, when all that is done and completed, he said, "This is the new heaven, the new earth." He says that the Lord shall set up with your seed, and the name shall remain. Continue on. And look at the feast days. Are they going to be done away with?
And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord.
Which is the way it was intended from the get-go. But unfortunately, we messed up and decided to go this long route, right, to come back to the beginning in which we were supposed to be from the jump in the days, since the days of Adam and Eve or whatnot. Go ahead.
And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die,
Man.
neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be in abhorring unto all flesh.
Imagine that. That's like low key. We went through the whole Bible when you really think about it. So that's, yep, that second death. And he says, and these individuals, all these disobedient individuals, whether of Israel or of the nations, he says they're going to be left for a sign. So people could look like, man, that could have been us. All praises to the Most High that we obey the law, endured until the end, and now the Most High has set us up and completed, his promises, which he did set with our forefathers from the beginning. But with that, we conclude the class, and until next time, please subscribe, share the content, and, have a blessed night. Shalom.